And we are recording. Welcome, everyone. This is your host, Abraham L. Jaguar, a professional game master. First of all, this channel is proudly sponsored by Inkforged. This is a fantasy role playing game of high detail but very easy to understand. You can imbue your weapons and gear with magically charged ink. You'll find the link in the description and in the pinned comment. This channel is also proudly sponsored by the Red Room Publishing. Please check out their store for exclusive tabletop RPG products. They have recently released New Flash, a future noir tabletop RPG where cyberpunk meets biological horror. You will find the link in the description and in the pinned comment as well. This channel is also proudly sponsored by Dead Tree Studios, the publishers and developers of Dames of Asstoria, a tabletop RPG where you play as monster girls, experiencing high adventure in a world that doesn't fully accept them. They have recently released Daughters of Lamb. This is a pay what you want tabletop RPG where you play as cybernetic nuns with guns. You will find that in their website, these nuns with guns are looking for the missing pieces of their AI god. The links will be in the description and in the pinned comment. Now let me maximize. Okay, this time I wanted to talk about when rules in tabletop role-playing games, when rules get in the way of combat. Some of the lamest, most disappointing moments in a tabletop RPG session happen when a game master does not allow the creative use of weapons, spells, abilities, skills, the environment, pretty much anything. Tabletop role playing games are not video games, they are not board games. In board games and video games, you have rules to follow, very strict rules to follow. In board games, you have those limitations. You cannot do many things that you could attempt in role playing games. If you don't have a rule to climb, you cannot climb. You cannot interact with the environment, with the board, with the elements of the board, unless it is mentioned otherwise. You can only use perhaps spells or attacks in very particular ways, and beyond that, not allowed. And that's because that's part of the fun of board games. You enjoy that experience of winning the game within those limitations. The same could be said of video games, unless it is programmed so in the video game. You cannot add those variations to your attacks, to your spells. If you have the ice spell, unless it is programmed into the game, that you can create blocks of ice with that spell or bridges of ice or whatever, any sort of creative use you can think of to be employed with any spell or ability or power that you have, any power, spell, or ability, if it is not programmed into the video game, it's not happening. But in tabletop role playing games, it is not so because you play a role and you play a game. You are experiencing the game world as your character. So if the player is employing an axe and he describes how his character uses the axe to hook the weapon, the shield, the object that the enemy is holding with that axe, it's going to be so lame. If the game master, no, no, you cannot do that. It's not in the rules. Here in the rulebook, it doesn't say no. Well, going back to the origins of tabletop role playing games, Dave Arneson, the creator of role playing games. Remember, Gary Gygax did not create tabletop RPGs. He was the one who took Dave Arneson's chaotic notes and organized them, worked them into a game system. But he never understood roleplay. He was a businessman and a rules writer. You could even say rules editor. But the one who created the concept of role playing in tabletop role playing games was Dave Arneson. Whenever any of Dave Arneson's players attempted something unusual, unorthodox, with their weapons, with their spells, with their artifacts, working with the environment, improvised weapons taken from objects, any sort of thing, it happens. It is allowed because it happens within the game world. It has already happened. The moment the player describes the action being attempted, that is happening. So now you either apply context or you come up with a rule to handle such a thing. So if your tabletop RPG has grappling rules, but a player describes how he takes hold of the arm of the opponent and tries to pull him, and oh no no, grappling only allows pushing in this game, or grappling doesn't allow you to move the opponent. When you grapple, you have to remain in the same place. You better come up with a rule for that on the fly, a ruling judgment call, or or like I said, purely context. It works, it doesn't work, but it has been done. Still, try to work in the favor of the players when they attempt that, because it is uh, their intent to roleplay, to interact with the game world. Why would you punish that? Unless it is something incredibly moronic, like I jump into the lava. Of course, something is going to happen to them if they jump into the lava just like that. Maybe they think they love the lava is an illusion, right? But if it is not, they are fried. I'm sorry, but they are fried. Maybe you can be a bit lenient, and you mentioned that the moment they are about to jump into the lava, they feel the searing pain and the parts of their boots they burn or whatever. Depends on the context. Depends on many things. But like I said, if the rules do not cover the actions attempted by the players, then you better come up with something, because the player is actually trying to interact with the fiction, with the game world. The player is actually role playing. The same applies to spells. If it's not written in the spell description, but it is logical to do so, if the spell is like a force blast and the player wants to use that force blast to propel himself onto a certain platform, even though he takes damage from the force blast, it happens. So always take into consideration that this is not a video game. If the player wants to attempt something with the halberd and it is not covered in the rules, that's too bad. There are many systems that have weapon traits that allow certain maneuvers. Then you can perhaps allow that is within the role play. Just let it flow with some penalties. If they are using a weapon that is not the best weapon at disarming or pulling or grappling or whatever, and the player is trying to entangle, disarm, pull, any sort of unorthodox action with that weapon, that should be happening in the game world. If you require a roll, player makes the roll with a penalty. That's it. Make an attack roll with this penalty. Make a grappling roll with this penalty. Make a roll to trip the opponent with this penalty. As simple as that. And that way you are still supporting the rule set. You are still, if they use a whip or a chain to trip the opponent, it happens normally. If they are using something else to trip the opponent, like an axe, like a hammer, a warhammer, they are trying to use the warhammer to trip the opponent. They saw that the opponent is leaning too much on the right foot, while the left foot is a bit loose. Make that roll with a penalty. Call for a roll with a penalty, as simple as that. So I hope this video was informative and entertaining. Remember, this is a tabletop role-playing game environment. This is you're playing a role and you're playing a game. You're not playing a board game. You're not playing a video game. Those things happen in the fiction. They are, of course, allowed, but you can always apply bonuses or penalties as required. Don't forget to leave a like, comment, subscribe. And thank you so much to those of you that are going the extra mile to support the channel. Anyone else wishes to further support the channel, consider joining as a member or using the super thanks button. You can also check out the information in the description in the pinned comment. This has been your host Abraham L. Jaguar, a professional game master. And remember, roleplay solves everything. Once again, thank you and see you later.